Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here. You know who it is, the internet's sweatiest music nerd. And just recently, XXXTentacion dropped a new music video for the song Look at Me, one of his biggest tracks, one of his most popular tracks, which when I initially saw this drop, it didn't really surprise me because that song has been one of his biggest songs, the song that really kind of put him on the map. He signed to a label now. They are most likely looking to kind of promote him more, get his name out there more. And what better way than to slap a music video onto one of the dude's most viral and most popular tracks? It wouldn't be the first time that an artist sort of off the SoundCloud base or from the underground had a hot viral song but didn't have a video to pair with it, but then slapped one on it later when he actually had the means and was signed. So going into it, I didn't really expect anything than just kind of a silly, ridiculous music video, and certainly that is what X presents as soon as the video starts. He's in a classroom. There's a bunch of sort of rowdy classmates in there. He ends up like hitting the teacher in the class on the head with a dildo. So yes, it is very over the top. It is very silly. However, if you know anything about X, you know he has a particular opinion of that song and an opinion of sort of the songs that he's made in the past that have gotten almost as popular, that are kind of in the same vein, sort of in the same style, the same sound. And it's that he doesn't feel like this sound and this sort of hype sort of approach really kind of fully defines him as an artist. And obviously, I think he feels some kind of way about the lack of a real kind of serious message or any kind of social substance to a track like Look at Me, which is why I think he's been trying to distance himself with more thoughtful tracks, more emotional tracks ever since the release of that cut. And certainly that is exemplified in this music video too, because as soon as the teacher gets sort of clobbered, the Look at Me video just totally cuts out. X essentially clickbaits his fans, which in a way is kind of genius, in my opinion. I mean, take your biggest track, give it a music video, and totally ruin and smash everybody's expectations of what exactly, you were going to do with this video. And essentially, he sort of gives us a video instead for the song Riot, which in comparison with Look at Me has a much grittier, a much sort of deeper, and a more aggressive sort of message behind it. It's sort of interesting because it reads to me as if he is very conscious of what his fans expect from him, what they want from him in terms of, just like this really hype shit. And instead of sort of delivering that, he's slapping their hands away and saying, no, you're getting something else. You're getting this. And what this is essentially unfolds into this message about racial violence, police brutality, going all the way back to Emmett Till, and talking about more recent instances like Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, Heather Heyer, and then that's kind of the second portion of the video, basically the video for the song Riot. And then after that, we sort of get this weird cut scene and a monologue from X that features an eerily quiet moment on a stage where an audience sort of shrouded in darkness is kind of sitting and watching X and a young black child put a noose around the neck of a white child and they hang him. This is also kind of juxtaposed with the imagery earlier during the visuals for the video for Riot, where X and a few other guys are sort of hanging from a tree too. And I think there's like purposefully supposed to be this kind of opposite sides of the spectrum sort of image going here. While X sort of hangs the kid and sort of shows you this white kid hanging, he's obviously trying to make a contrast here between, okay, obviously if there's racial violence on one side, it's as ugly as racial violence on the other side. It happening to one side doesn't necessarily justify it to the other side, so on and so forth, which is pretty much exactly the message that he delivers in the monologue at the end, which it's not like he sort of tailors this message in such a way where he's kind of talking to your average person. It's almost like he tailored the message specifically for racial supremacists from either side of the aisle or whatever race you may be. It sort of seemed like a general blanket statement in a way, which is kind of odd. Typically a lot of these things just sort of center on white supremacy because it is very much a thing, but X sort of seems to focus on it in more of a general sense, saying that you can have these thoughts and you could feel comfortable in, places where, you feel like your culture, your race are sort of enforced or whatever. But if you act upon these feelings and you act upon these issues, especially in a violent way, that's disgusting. That's wrong. And at the end of the day, you're kind of hurting your cause and you're hurting the future. You're hurting your offspring, which I think is actually kind of a fair point given the rise of white nationalism and the alt-right in politics right now. And the more that they sort of voice their concerns, the more angry and aggressive they get in their attacks toward their detractors, the more society generally just hates them, and everything that they stand for and everything that they represent too. It's, again, sort of weird to see X kind of bring the real ideological extremes of sort of the conversation going on right now politically and socially in American discourse, and sort of focusing merely on that when there's really sort of an entire spectrum of people in the middle who are concerned about a myriad of other topics or are, as far as sheer numbers, completely dwarfing and outnumbering anybody who may be lying in the extremes on the left or the right. Not to say that I think his focus is entirely wrong, but it's sort of weird to see him approach it. And with at least a little bit of nuance, certainly more nuance than you would catch in the mainstream media or in some sort of ongoing ideological battle over Twitter or whatever. Not to say that X approaches it with the most nuance I've ever seen anybody approach it with, but certainly more than you would expect from your average SoundCloud rapper or, your average rap music video. I can't completely attack X's points. I mean, I think there were a few moments with the cinematography that were a little shoddy. Like, I thought the scene with the hanging, frankly, the lead up to that was a little awkward. Like, the kids just didn't really know what to do or were just kind of standing there as if, I don't know, they just didn't know how to act out the scene or they weren't directed properly. There were moments where sort of footage that they shot were being woven into sort of these instances of racial violence that are brought up throughout the video, and some of those kind of rolled out in a really awkward way, especially like the white woman rolling over the hood of the car. Like, it just seemed like it was spliced in a really weird kind of, again, awkward way. I can critique the cinematography, sure. The point that X is making here is fine. It's okay. It's not the worst sort of idea I've heard somebody put forward. It's not exactly revolutionary, nor do I think it's going to get that many people talking. And that's kind of where my main issue with this music video sort of comes in, because is X truly starting a conversation or trying to educate people on these issues or this thought process or this philosophy? Did he really deliver a straightforward message that people are going to truly learn from and that people are truly going to gain from? I get the sense that he's feeling like he's educating people with this music video, which I think is why the intro part with Look at Me sort of played out the way that it did in the classroom. I don't think it was just merely sort of like a cheap in your face just to kind of pull it away from you. I think X and the people who were there in the music video purposefully disrupted the classroom so that he could kind of create an opportunity where he was really going to teach you something, at least from his point of view. And that's kind of another thing that kind of bothers me about this music video. There's like an air of pretentiousness around a lot of what happens in this music video, as if he's about to educate you, the viewer, about what's going on in this music video, because it's like he's coming from a place where he feels like he knows more than anybody who's going to stumble across this video. And that may not, in fact, be entirely the case. He may feel like, I'm just making this video for a certain amount of people and da-da-da-da-da. But honestly, even those people, are we to truly assume that X, is so much smarter than the average person? He's so much smarter than the average person who's going to catch this music video. And if he is, are they really going to get the message? Are they really going to get what he's trying to get across here? Because I feel like a lot of what he's trying to say is not so much put bluntly or put in a way where people are actually going to apply it to their personal lives. I feel like he presents it more in a way where he kind of uses social issues as a bit of a veil so he can present to the audience a series of really shocking, very gritty, very controversial images. So then that in turn ends up fueling the hype and the infatuation and the obsession and the talkativity factor, or talkability factor. I guess the discussion factor is the word I'm really looking for. The discussion factor around this video. It's like he's just kind of using this as an opportunity to create more buzz, create more hype, manipulate people's feelings, which honestly X is not really new to. This is not like sort of a new thing for him. I mean, even to sort of drop the lone Instagram video of him sort of being hung in this music video for the footage was really disturbing and strange and caught a lot of people off guard, given that you do have a lot of people in his audience who do have very dark mindsets, do have issues with suicidal thoughts, which is why they're sort of attracted to a lot of the messages and things that he says. And then to sort of present that to them, could have potentially triggered a lot of people. I don't know why he sort of came off as if he was completely sort of unaware of that. I think if we're to actually believe that he's so smart that he's going to come in here and educate us, then he should be smart enough to know and understand that that kind of imagery just sort of dropped out of the blue with no context whatsoever, presented in a way where it almost looked like a suicide video, was actually going to maybe push some people over the edge or upset some people. You can't simultaneously try to educate everybody, but also play dumb when people don't get your art, or play dumb when people are offended by what you say, and you didn't understand, that they would take it that way. You can't be both. You have to pick one. So I think that's really everything I have to say about the video. I don't really dislike the idea of clickbaiting people to sort of get them into a video with a message or something. I think that's kind of interesting. I don't think that that's a bad move. And the whole theme, of racial violence throughout the video is certainly one that's, worth talking about. However, are we to assume that X is so empathetic that we should take him seriously as a voice on this topic? I mean, sure, he probably has some opinions on this issue. And again, he makes some fair points. However, in light of recent Instagram videos where he was essentially kind of joking about and poking fun at the idea of domestic abuse just because he doesn't like the fact that he's been accused of some very violent and very, nasty things, some very disgusting things in an upcoming court case that I will not get into here. I've made a video about it, which I will link to at the end of this video. But given his sort of willingness to make fun of issues like domestic abuse, why should we take you seriously when it comes to the topic of any kind of violence? Because violence, in my opinion, is violence. It's all disgusting. It's all unnecessary, and obviously, and I'm not talking about in terms of defense or something like that, but when you're talking about brutal, uncalled for, abusive violence, whether that violence is racially motivated or motivated by gender or whatever relationship you be in, I mean, they're both disgusting. So why you sort of have a heart and a conscience when it comes to one but not the other, it's a little questionable. But those are my thoughts on the music video, essentially. It is kind of confusing. It does leave me with some questions. I am very skeptical. I do think that it addresses some serious issues, but certainly there are some shortcomings here that not only have to do with the execution, but the messenger of the track, of the message too. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, guys. Over here next to my head is that video that I told you I would link you to. You're the best. I'll see you in the next one. Forever.